Hi seniors, it's day 9. We're looking at types of inflation today, and you've got to do an exercise on page 25. And I've put the key on Schoology for that do now, and then the homework key as well, so you can check your answers from the day before. Today we're looking at inflation. What does it tell us about the health of the economy? We want to describe different types and causes of inflation and look at the effects of inflation on individuals. We'll have a test on inflation tomorrow, and then our unit assessment will be next Friday. We'll focus on creeping inflation, demand pull, and cost push inflation today. And so if we look at this graph of inflation over the past 50 years, we want to think, what is an appropriate level of inflation for a healthy economy? And if you're thinking it's probably, around here, around 1 to 3%, you're exactly right. That's what we want, where we want to be. So building upon that idea, I have this video. I want you to think, what does this have to do with inflation? And so maybe you notice that cat is just creeping up on the other one, moving very, very slowly. The other cat doesn't even notice it, but there it is creeping along, and then all of a sudden it goes crazy. Well, that is reflective of our two types of inflation. The first one is called creeping inflation, and that's where we have slow, steady rates of 1 to 3%. And you can see over the past 10 years, we've been roughly between 1 and 3%. We went a little bit high right before the recession, and then we dropped below that during the recession. Inflation tends to go down during a recession, and it goes back up during periods of economic growth. And it's been pretty consistent ever since. And so that's healthy. We want a little bit of inflation. It's reflective of economic growth. But we don't want too much. We don't want something like this where inflation is low, but then it gets out of control. And like in Zimbabwe, where it was greater than 50% increase in 1 month. That's a hyperinflation. That's chaos. That's where the cat is attacking the other cat. So we want creeping inflation. That's our the two main types, creeping and hyper, and we want to be within 1 to 3%. And if we look back at this graph, we can see that we've done a pretty good job of that. And thinking about our economic goals, you should be able to see that helps us to achieve economic stability. And so there's two main causes of inflation, but we have to understand which side of the economy we're on. We have to remember that we have our two sides, our supply side and our demand side. And on the demand side, we're talking about consumers. On the supply side, we're talking about producers. And one type of inflation, or one cause of inflation, is demand pull inflation. That's on the demand side, and cost push inflation is on the other side. And if we recall what we learned earlier about supply and demand, we can better understand these differences in demand pull and cost push inflation. And so let's look at demand pull inflation. It's when we've got an increase in the money supply, too many dollars chasing too few goods. And another way to look at this would be if consumers spend money faster than businesses produce. That creates a shortage. Remember, we talked about how you fix a shortage. You have to raise the prices. Well, raising prices is inflation. And so if demand for goods is greater than your supply, you're going to have a shortage. We fix the shortage by raising prices. So we have too many dollars chasing too few goods. Think about what might cause people to have money so that they can spend it. Think about our demand shifters. Anytime we have that demand shift to the right, such as a change in income, if more people are working, if unemployment goes down, more people are working, more people have money, more people demand stuff. That creates a demand shift to the right, which creates a price increase. That is demand pull inflation. On the other side, you've got cost push inflation, and this deals with that supply shifter, a change in the cost of inputs. That decreases business revenues. It makes it more expensive to produce stuff. Businesses produce less, and that pushes prices up. And so remember our supply shifters, a supply shift to the left. If we have a supply shift to the left because of increasing costs of our rising costs of inputs, then we supply less, we have a rise in price. That is cost push inflation. So those are the two types and two causes of inflation. Let's look at some economic effects of this. We've got the wage price spiral. If employees win a wage increase, then the company has to raise the price of their products, and the price of the increased cost of products goes on to a consumer, which in this case would be a farmer, and they use fertilizer to produce their products, so they have to increase the cost of their products so that they can make money. Well, those products then go on to other consumers, and consumers buy those products, but they see the higher price and they insist on, well, hey, now I need a pay increase. So it creates this never-ending spiral called the wage price spiral. Think about how that would apply to a $15 an hour minimum wage debate, especially if fast food restaurants like McDonald's start to raise the minimum wage, pay their employees $15 an hour, then that's going to translate into more expensive food items. It also affects our purchasing power, the ability to purchase goods and services. Remember in Unit 2 we talked about who answers the question of who gets what? Well, it's based on purchasing power in a market economy. And so as prices go up, your purchasing power declines. And so the $20 that you have in your pocket, 5-10 years from now, you're not going to be able to buy as much with it, even though it still has a value of $5. And so in 98, you could buy a whole basket full of stuff because individual items were cheap. But as the prices of those things go up, you can buy fewer and fewer items with $20 because your $20 doesn't become $25 then $30. It remains the same $20. It has an effect on personal income, especially people on a fixed income. If you make a minimum wage, if people are on Social Security, they earn a certain dollar amount every single month. That's their $20, but the prices continue to rise. And so they are hit the hardest. Then you have your flexible wage earners, and they might get a cost of living adjustment. Basically, a cost of living adjustment is given by an employee to workers that is usually close to the current rate of inflation. And so if inflation is 1.5%, you might get a pay raise of 1.5% that is based on inflation. It's the cost of living adjustment. So you want to be aware of that when you're looking for jobs. Do they offer this benefit, or is your income going to be fixed and tied to your performance? It also make it difficult to plan for the future. Those large purchases are difficult to save for because they're going to only cost more in the future. And so you have to set aside more money for it. And then one last example of this is that if you start college with a savings of $10,000 and you say, you know what, I'm going to spend $2,500 every single year, carefully budget expenses for food, for going out, for clothes, whatever, that's your budget. But then because of inflation, those dollars buy less and less every single year. So to pay for exactly the same things you bought your freshman year for $2,500, by the time you're a senior, now you need $2,750 because the price of those things has gone up. So it's just like before, your purchasing power goes down. But if you don't anticipate that in the future, it can make it very hard to plan for the future. And so see if you can summarize some of those economic effects of inflation. Pause the video, rewind, go back, and see what you have. Then take a look at these. Do you have some of these items? These are some of the effects that you'll want to know. Quiz tomorrow, for tomorrow, that's on Schoology. Then we'll have our assessment tomorrow as well. As always, seek me out for support, and good luck.